Black cashier pays 85 cents for elderly woman. What happens next warms hearts everywhere. The grocery store felt calm in that late afternoon way when the sun sat low and warm light came through the tall front windows. A few people pushed carts slowly down the aisles. A little boy tapped his mother's arm and pointed at a box of cereal with a cartoon tiger on it. Near register 3, an elderly woman stood carefully, both hands on the handle of a small wire basket. Her name was Mrs. Thompson. She wore a soft gray sweater, even though the day was warm, and her hair was white and neat. In her basket were simple things: a half loaf of bread, a small carton of milk, a dozen eggs, apples placed gently so they would not bruise, and a small packet of tea bags. When it was her turn, she gave a polite smile to the cashier and set each item on the belt with slow, careful movements. The belt hummed, the scanner beeped, and the screen showed the growing total. The cashier's name was Malik. He was in his early 20s, with kind eyes and a clean blue store shirt. He had a habit of greeting every person the same way, with the same steady smile, like he had decided long ago that no one should feel rushed or small. He said hello there to Mrs. Thompson in a voice that was calm, and he waited for her to place the last item. He watched her hands, which shook just a little, and he noticed the way she counted her breath, like someone who had learned to move carefully through a busy world. He thought about his own grandmother, who had taught him to be patient and to let people finish without hurrying them. The last item crossed the scanner. The beep was soft. The total flashed on the screen. Mrs. Thompson opened a small coin purse, the old kind that snaps open with a little click. She had folded bills and a few coins inside. She counted the bills once, then again, and then she counted the coins, her fingertip moving slowly across the little silver and copper circles. She looked up at the total again and did the quiet math in her head. Her mouth formed a small O, a breath more than a word. She looked at the milk, then back at the coin purse. Behind her, the line had grown. A man in work boots shifted his weight. A teen with headphones leaned on the gum rack. A young couple whispered about which bus they needed to catch. The air felt still, as if the store itself was listening. "I believe I'm short," Mrs. Thompson said in a very soft voice. She gave a small laugh that was not really a laugh, more like a gentle apology. "Just by a bit. I'm sorry." She reached for the milk with the hand that shook the least. "I can put this back." Malik's eyes flicked to the screen and then to her hand. It was a small carton, the kind that could fit in one palm. He understood what milk could mean to someone living alone: tea in the morning, a glass before bed, a simple comfort that made a kitchen feel warm. He thought of simple things that made life softer and how hard it can feel to place them back, as if you are telling yourself that comfort is not for you today. He thought about his grandmother's words that he could hear like a low radio in the back of his mind: if you can help someone get home with dignity, do it. "Please leave it," Malik said gently. "You're all set." Mrs. Thompson looked confused for a second. "Oh no, I don't want to cause trouble," she said, a little color rising in her cheeks. "I can come back next week." "No trouble," he said. He tapped his card against the small reader near the register. The machine made a soft chime. He typed a quick code. The screen blinked, and the new total appeared. 85 cents. That was the difference. He did not make a show of it. He did not say anything about the amount. He just kept the flow going, like he had covered a small gap in a sidewalk so someone would not trip. "I appreciate it," Mrs. Thompson said. Her eyes were wet, not with big tears, but with the kind that gather when you feel seen in a place where you expected to be invisible. "That's very kind." She folded her receipt in careful squares and tucked it into her purse as if she were packing away a small, bright memory. The line behind her relaxed in a way that people do not notice in the moment. The man in work boots shifted back. The young couple smiled at each other. The teen with headphones watched quietly, eyes moving from the screen to the cashier, then to the elderly woman. "Would you like help with your bags?" Malik asked. He asked everyone, but this time the question carried a little more care. "I think I can manage," she said, lifting one bag and then the other, testing their weight. "Thank you, what is your name?" "Malik," he said. "Thank you, Malik," she repeated, like she wanted to say it right, and then she walked toward the doors, moving slow and steady, the kind of steady that comes from years of learning to keep your balance. The automatic doors slid open with a hush, and she stepped into the late sunlight that made the parking lot shine. The teen with the headphones was still watching. He looked down at his phone, then back at Malik, then at the door where Mrs. Thompson had gone out. He lifted his phone and snapped a picture of the little screen where the card had been tapped. The angle showed the receipt, but no faces. He typed a short caption with his thumbs: "Cashier covered 85 cents for an older woman so she could keep her milk." He did it quietly. Respect. He did not add a name because he did not know it, and because it did not feel like a story about labels. He hit post to his small account, the way teens do when something makes their chest feel different for a moment and they want to show someone. The next customer moved up. Life went on. Someone asked where the bathroom was. Another person asked if there were any more of the fresh bread rolls. Malik kept ringing up items. He smiled and made sure the eggs were packed on top. He asked if anyone needed help out to their car. He did not think about the 85 cents again because it did not feel like a big thing to him. It felt like a normal thing, the kind of thing that should happen as often as needed, like holding a door or picking up a dropped glove. When his shift ended, he clocked out and walked into the soft evening. The sky was a wash of colors that looked like they had been stirred slowly, gold near the horizon, then pink, then a gentle purple higher up. He took the bus home with a paperback in his backpack, the kind of book he liked to read on quiet nights. His phone buzzed with a message from his cousin asking about weekend plans. He smiled and wrote back, "Maybe Sunday dinner." He leaned his head against the bus window and watched the city slip by in pieces, a laundromat window with a help wanted sign, a mother walking with her child's hand in hers, a dog asleep under a cafe chair. At home, he heated up leftovers and put on soft music. He pulled out a binder where he kept notes for a class he hoped he could afford soon: EMT training. He had put it off when money was tight, but he kept the binder because it made the dream feel real. He reviewed a section on taking vital signs and wrote a few practice questions for himself on sticky notes. He did not tell anyone about the 85 cents. It did not feel like something to share. It felt like a private handshake between two people who had understood each other for a quiet moment. Across town, Mrs. Thompson set her groceries on the small kitchen table by the window. She put the bread in the bread box and the eggs in the fridge. She placed the apples in a blue bowl that had a tiny chip on the edge from many years of use. She set the milk beside the tea kettle and smiled at the thought of a warm cup in the morning. She sat down and took out a piece of stationery she kept for special notes. In neat, looping handwriting, she wrote a message to Malik, even though she did not know if she would see him again: "Thank you for your kindness today. You made me feel cared for. I used to tell my students that the best math is the kind you do with your heart. Today you did that math. With gratitude, Mrs. Thompson." In a small apartment a few blocks from the store, the teen scrolled through his feed. His little post about the 85 cents had a few likes, then a few more. A friend left a comment: "More people like him, please." Another wrote, "That's the kind of story that makes a day better." He did not expect anything from it. He put his phone down and picked up his homework, but every so often he checked again, surprised to see the numbers grow in a way that felt simple and pure. It was not a big scandal or a flashy prank. It was just a tiny act that made people breathe a little easier as they read it. Back at the store, the evening rush faded. The floors were swept. The overhead music switched to softer songs. The manager, a careful man who liked things in order, checked end-of-day numbers and looked at incident reports, of which there were none. When he passed Register 3, he thought of Malik and how customers often mentioned him by name in the little satisfaction survey. The manager liked that. It made him feel that the store was more than prices and inventory, it was also a place where a person could feel looked after for a few minutes. Night settled in. Street lights came on with their quiet click. Buses finished their routes. A few stars appeared where the city sky allowed. In homes across the neighborhood, people made tea, watched a favorite show, or called someone they loved. In one home, a teacher who had retired years ago set her alarm and smiled at the thought of tomorrow. In another, a young cashier tucked his binder back on the shelf and turned off the lamp, his mind calm. On the teen's phone, the numbers kept climbing, not wildly, but steadily, like a small drum beat in the background. Likes, shares, a few messages asking, which store, and what was the cashier's name. He did not answer because he did not know, and because the point did not seem to be names. It seemed to be something else, something soft, the way a person can make another person's day easier without asking for any credit. Morning would bring new eyes to the little story. It would bring questions and attention and choices that had not yet appeared. But for now, the city rested. The milk sat in a neat kitchen, waiting for tea. A note, written with care, sat folded on a table, ready to be delivered. And somewhere, a young man who had covered a small gap in someone's day slept well, not knowing that his quiet act was already traveling from one phone to another, from one heart to the next, with a simple message that people understood at once: a small kindness can carry someone home. Morning came with a clean light that made the grocery store's windows glow. Malik liked to arrive a few minutes early, to tie his apron without hurry and to take a breath before the doors got busy. He greeted the security guard, who lifted two fingers in a friendly wave, and he checked his register, making sure the receipt paper was full and the scanner was clean. He liked small routines. They made the day smooth. As he signed in, he saw the store manager walking toward him with a careful look on his face. The manager was a thoughtful man who kept a neat clipboard and measured his words. "Hey, Malik," he said in a calm voice, "could I see you in the office for a moment?" In the small office near the back, the manager closed the door and offered a chair. Malik sat, hands folded, not nervous exactly, but alert. The manager looked at his clipboard, then at Malik. "I want to ask about something that may have happened yesterday," he began. "A customer was short a small amount at your register. Is that right?" Malik nodded and told him, step by step, what had happened. He spoke simply. An elderly woman had come up short by less than $1. She wanted to put the milk back. He had covered the difference with his own card so she could keep everything. He had not used the store till or any discount. He had not made a big deal of it. He had just helped. The manager listened closely. "You used your personal card," he confirmed. "Yes," Malik said. "I didn't want her to feel embarrassed." The manager let out a small breath, not unhappy, just thinking. "I appreciate your kindness," he said. "Company policy is strict about how transactions are handled. We don't want to set patterns that could be misused. But you didn't change the price or touch the till. You paid the remainder like any customer would. That helps." He paused. "There's another piece. A post about this is getting attention online. People are asking which store it was. A reporter emailed the front desk this morning." Malik blinked in surprise. A reporter? The word felt big and strange. He had not told anyone about the small act. He did not even think of it as a story. He thought of it like holding a door. The manager nodded. "Someone took a photo of the card reader and wrote about what you did. No faces. The tone is positive. But attention can be complicated. I need to check with corporate on how to handle it." His voice stayed steady, kind even. "You're not in trouble. I want to be careful and fair. Let me make some calls." Back on the floor, Malik rang up a few customers. He answered where to find the flour and how to use the self-checkout. In the break room during his 10-minute pause, two co-workers sat with their lunches and scrolled on their phones. "Yo, look at this," one said, turning the screen toward Malik. It was the Post. The photo showed a close-up of a receipt and the little contactless symbol lighting up. The caption read, "Cashier covered 85 cents for an older woman so she could keep her milk. He did it quietly. Respect." Comments were stacking up like neat rows. "This you?" the co-worker asked, half teasing, half proud. Malik shrugged, a little shy. "Maybe," he said. The other co-worker smiled. "People are saying nice things. It's cool. Just be careful with policy stuff. Managers get nervous about lines." Malik nodded. He understood both sides. He understood rules, and he understood people. Across town, the teenager who had posted the moment sat at his kitchen table, half-finished homework spread out. He refreshed his phone and watched the numbers rise. Friends shared the post to a neighborhood group. A local page known for positive stories reposted it with the line, "Kindness is simple math." A few people asked for the cashier's name. The teen thought for a while and decided not to guess or to press. He posted a small update, "I didn't get his name, and I didn't show faces on purpose. Please keep it about the act, not about putting anyone on the spot." That note itself drew kind replies. A school counselor messaged the teen privately to say, "Thanks for posting a story that makes people breathe a little easier." At lunchtime, the store phone rang more than usual. Some callers asked store hours, but several wanted to say thank you. "Please tell your cashier you made my day, even though I wasn't even there," one woman said, laughing softly at her own words. "We need more of this." The front desk associate wrote quick notes on small pink slips. Caller says, "Proud of your store." Caller says, "Thank you to your team." Caller asks, "What is the cashier's name?" She left the slips in a neat stack for the manager, who kept them like little seeds of good news. Around 2 in the afternoon, the automatic doors opened and Mrs. Thompson walked in with slow, steady steps. She wore the same soft sweater and carried a small tin wrapped in a clean dish towel. She asked at customer service if she might speak to the young man at register 3 from yesterday. He had kind eyes, she said, working to remember the name. "I think he said Malik." The associate checked the schedule. "He's on break for 10 minutes, she said. "Could I leave something for him?" Mrs. Thompson nodded. She took out the folded note she had written the night before, the one about the best math being done with the heart, and placed it under the tin. "Just a small thank you," she said. "Please tell him it meant more than the amount." The manager, in the office again, dialed corporate. He spoke to a communications person who was calm and clear. They asked for the facts. Did the cashier change the price? No. Did he use store funds? No. Did he pressure the customer? No. Did the post show company logos or identifiable staff without consent? Faces were not shown. "Okay," the communications person said, with a tone that suggested they had navigated things far more complicated than this. "This seems to be a genuine, positive story. If a reporter calls, you can confirm in general terms without naming the employee unless he agrees. Stress that we value both kindness and policy. We'll consider if there's a way to support moments like this that still respects procedures." The manager felt relief move through his shoulders. He went to find Malik near the end of the aisle where the dish soap lived. "Quick update," he said with a small smile. "You're fine. Corporate's fine. We'll keep it simple. Also, someone left this for you." He held out the small tin and the folded note. Malik opened the note and read, and his eyes softened in a way that made the world around him fade for a second. He pictured a classroom, a chalkboard, small hands holding pencils, and a teacher stretching every bit of kindness to cover small gaps. "Can I thank her?" he asked. "She might still be in the store," the manager said, glancing toward the front. They checked, but Mrs. Thompson had already slipped back into her afternoon. Malik held the note like a small light and promised himself he would see her again. The day carried on. More comments stacked under the teen's post. People shared their own tiny stories: a stranger who added a quarter at a parking meter, a bus driver who waited for a running passenger, a neighbor who carried groceries up 3 flights of stairs. It was as if the 85 cents had opened a small door in people's minds, reminding them of moments they had forgotten but loved to remember. A producer at a local radio show bookmarked the post for their morning segment. A community journalist sent an email to the store's public address with a subject line that was warm, a small act with a big echo story request. The front desk forwarded the message to the manager, who printed it and placed it carefully on his clipboard. In the quiet between the afternoon and evening rush, the manager asked Malik if he would be comfortable speaking to a local reporter. "You can say no," he added quickly. "There's no pressure. Your privacy matters." Malik thought about it. He did not want the focus to be on him. He wanted the focus to be on the idea that small kindness is not a big production. It's just everyday care. "If I speak," he said slowly, "I'd like to talk about dignity. Not about me." The manager nodded, pleased. "That sounds right." They set a time for the reporter to drop by the next day for a short chat, 5 minutes near the front windows, no photos without permission. The manager wrote down boundaries in neat bullet points for himself so he would not forget. After his shift, Malik took the bus again, the tin from Mrs. Thompson in his bag. He opened it at home and found simple cookies, the kind that melt soft and leave a light sweetness. He poured a glass of water, sat at his small table, and read the note again. He thought of his grandmother's words: "If you can help someone get home with dignity, do it." He also thought of rules, of honest systems that keep things fair, and he felt grateful that both could live together when handled with care. The teenager, meanwhile, refreshed his phone one more time and saw that a local online paper had picked up the story. The headline was gentle and clear: "Cashier pays 85 cents, community pays attention." The article did not name the store or the cashier. It focused on the comment thread, on the way people had started sharing their own small stories, on how a tiny bridge of coins could lead to a bigger bridge between hearts. There was a simple line near the end: "Kindness is not measured by amount but by intention and by how quietly it lets someone keep their pride." Back at the store, 2 women read the article on their phones while waiting in line. One turned to the other and said, "I'm going to keep a little kindness change in my wallet from now on." The other nodded. "Me too." A man in a work shirt hummed the tune playing softly from the ceiling speakers and looked at the jars of gum, suddenly thinking that small things mattered more than they looked. The line moved. Beeps, bags, receipts. Life stayed ordinary and also a little brighter. That night, as street lights blinked on and the radio host wrote notes for the next morning's show, the city held a steady, hopeful mood. A teacher laid out tomorrow's lesson and added a new prompt: "Write about a time someone helped you with a small thing." A cafe owner taped a tiny sign behind the register to test an idea: "Short a few coins. Tell us." The manager finished his final walk of the aisles, checked the doors, and turned the key with a feeling he did not always have at closing time: a quiet satisfaction that his store had been part of something good and simple. Malik set his alarm and placed the tin back on the counter so he would remember to thank Mrs. Thompson properly. He looked at his EMT binder on the shelf and felt a calm wish, not a loud one. He hoped he would get there. He hoped he would learn to help people in bigger ways, too, and still remember the small ways. He turned off the light and let the day close. By morning, The article would spread a little farther. People would send it to friends with short messages like "This made me smile and look at this." The radio host would read it out loud between traffic updates. A civics teacher would think of a class project. The store phones would ring again, but with kindness. And the little act at register 3 would stand as what it was, a small bridge at the right moment. The stage was set for more ripples, the kind that do not crash but travel gently and change the shape of a day. The next morning began with a quiet but steady hum across the city. Local radio stations picked up the small article about the grocery store cashier, and by sunrise, many commuters were already listening to the headline, "Cashier pays 85 cents, community pays attention." Hosts spoke about it in cheerful tones, and callers phoned in to share their own little stories of kindness. One man recalled when a stranger covered his bus fare on a cold day. Another woman said a cashier once slipped a small discount so she could buy bread for her kids. The radio became less about traffic and weather and more about people remembering what it felt like to be cared for in small ways. By mid-morning, the story spread further. A popular local blog wrote a short post with the headline, "Kindness doesn't need to be expensive." They described Malik's quiet action in simple words. Readers commented beneath it, sharing their gratitude. "This is the news I want to see over my coffee," one wrote. 85 cents changed my whole mood this morning, wrote another. In schools across the city, teachers also noticed. A civics teacher at a high school printed the article and pinned it to the bulletin board. He told his class, "Let's make this real. I'm giving you all a challenge: do one small good deed this week. Write about it. Call it the 85-cent challenge." Students looked around, some smiling, some curious. One girl raised her hand and asked if it had to involve money. The teacher shook his head. "Not at all. Help a neighbor carry bags, share a snack, hold a door. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is thought." Parents saw their children come home with bright eyes, talking about the challenge. Soon, families began taking part too. A father gave up his place in line at the post office for an older man. A mother quietly paid the toll for the car behind her. Small ripples moved through daily life, inspired by the story of one cashier and one elderly woman. Back at the grocery store, Malik worked his shift as usual. Customers smiled at him more than before. Some even whispered thank you, even if they weren't the person from the story. He didn't always know what they were thanking him for, but he smiled anyway. He could feel the warmth around him, though he stayed humble. The store manager noticed changes too. A barbershop down the street placed a small glass jar at their counter with a handwritten label, 85-cent fund. Anyone short of a little could use it, no questions asked. A cafe taped a sign near the register, "If you're short on change, you're covered." The spirit was catching on, almost like music that spread without effort. In the evening, Malik's cousin stopped by his apartment. "Man, you're all over the internet," he said, pulling out his phone. "Did you see this?" He showed Malik a radio station's page filled with comments praising him. Malik laughed softly. "All for 85 cents. His cousin nodded. "Not the cents. The heart. That's what people see." Later that night, a local foundation noticed the trend. They were known for helping young people with education and training. They read the detail about Malik once wanting to become an EMT but putting it off because of money. That line stood out. The director of the foundation thought, "Here is someone who already lives with the heart of a helper." She wrote an email offering support not just for Malik, but for seniors like Mrs. Thompson who often face those small, painful shortages. The email proposed, "Let's start something practical. We'll match community donations. Half will go toward a scholarship fund for Malik to finish EMT training. Half will go toward small pantry cards for seniors on fixed incomes." Meanwhile, Mrs. Thompson read the article in her kitchen. She smiled to see people moved by what Malik had done. She thought of the folded note she had left for him, and she hoped he had read it. She brewed herself a cup of tea with the milk she had kept because of him. The warmth filled not just her cup, but her heart. She decided she would attend any community event connected to this, if it came to pass. She wanted to thank him again in person. The next day, the reporter returned to the store for a quick follow-up. She asked Malik if he was surprised by all the attention. He shrugged, eyes kind but shy. "I didn't expect it," he admitted. "I didn't do it for attention. I just didn't want her to go home without milk. My grandmother always told me, if you can help someone keep their dignity, do it." The reporter wrote down those words carefully, knowing they would touch readers again. When the updated article went online, it quoted Malik's sentence about dignity. That line spread quickly, copied into posts, printed on little flyers, and even mentioned by preachers in Sunday sermons. People found themselves thinking about the word dignity in a new way. It was not just about grand gestures. It was about letting someone keep their small comforts without shame. The grocery store headquarters, seeing all this unfold, made a decision. They announced a trial program called the Kindness Fund. Each store would keep a small envelope of petty cash, just enough to quietly cover small shortages at the register. Staff could use it at their discretion, no questions asked. The news spread, and customers praised the idea. "This makes me want to shop there more," someone wrote. At the same time, the foundation began raising money for the pantry card program and for Malik's training. Donations came in faster than expected. People loved the idea of turning 85 cents into something lasting. One man sent $8.50, writing, 10 times the story. Another sent $85 with a note, 100 times the heart. Families pooled small amounts, excited that they could be part of something bigger. Malik learned about the donation slowly. When the manager showed him the email, he felt stunned. He had never imagined strangers would want to help him return to his dream of becoming an EMT. "I'm grateful," he said, his voice quiet, "but I want the seniors to be helped first." This started with her need, not mine. That answer touched even more hearts, and donations grew again. One evening, a local radio host called it the ripple effect. He explained, "A woman almost put back her milk. A cashier paid 85 cents. A teenager posted it. Now we have students writing essays, shops starting funds, a nonprofit launching programs, and a young man on his way to training as an EMT. That's how kindness works. It ripples outward." The city began to feel proud of this small story. News anchors smiled while reporting it. People shared it with friends across states. It became more than a headline, it became a reminder. Every time someone held a door, covered a few coins, or let another person go ahead in line, they thought of 85 cents and the young man at Register 3. By the end of the week, a community event was being planned at the grocery store. Local leaders wanted to thank Malik and also launch the first set of pantry cards. Mrs. Thompson was invited. The reporter prepared to cover it live. The foundation prepared to hand Malik his scholarship letter. And all the while, the city buzzed with a simple truth: it had started with the quietest act, one almost too small to notice, and it had grown into something people would carry in their hearts. That night, Malik walked home with a thoughtful expression. He had never sought recognition. He had only wanted to help. But now he could see clearly, sometimes the smallest actions shine the farthest, not because of the money, but because of the meaning. He whispered a quiet thank you to his grandmother's memory, then stepped inside his apartment, unaware of just how wide his ripples were still spreading. The grocery store buzzed with an unusual kind of excitement on the day of the community event. Balloons were tied to shopping carts, and a small table was set up by the front windows with a banner that read in simple letters, "The 85-cent pantry card launch." Customers who walked in paused to read it, and many of them smiled, already knowing what it was about. The story had spread so widely by then that it felt like everyone in the neighborhood had heard a version of it. Some came to shop, but many came just to see what was happening. Malik was nervous. He had never been the center of attention before. He liked working quietly, making sure customers felt comfortable, and then going home to read or study. Now, people were greeting him warmly, some shaking his hand, some patting him on the shoulder, as though he were a family member they were proud of. He tried to stay calm, reminding himself that it wasn't about him. It was about what a small act had started. Just before the event began, Mrs. Thompson arrived. She wore a light blue coat and carried a small handbag. Her steps were slow, but her face glowed with gentle pride. The moment she saw Malik, her eyes softened, and she raised her hand slightly as if to wave. Malik walked over quickly and greeted her with the warmest smile he had. "Mrs. Thompson," he said softly, "I'm so glad you're here." She held his hand in both of hers. "I wouldn't miss it," she said. "You gave me more than milk that day. You gave me dignity." Her voice trembled, and Malik could feel the weight of her gratitude. She reached into her bag and handed him a folded piece of paper. On it was a quote she said her late husband had loved: "Leave places warmer than you found them." Malik read it and nodded. He promised quietly to carry that motto with him. The manager of the store, standing at the microphone, welcomed everyone. He explained the pantry card program in simple terms. Seniors on fixed incomes could now apply for a small, reloadable card. It wasn't much, but it would be enough to cover those tiny gaps at checkout, so no one would ever have to put back milk, bread, or eggs because of a few missing coins. "This started," the manager said, looking at Malik, "with one moment at register 3. And now it belongs to all of us." The crowd applauded warmly. When Malik was invited to speak, he stepped up slowly, holding the note Mrs. Thompson had given him. "I don't like to be the center of attention," he began honestly, and the crowd chuckled kindly. "I only did what I thought anyone should do. But I'm thankful you all turned it into something bigger. It wasn't about 85 cents. It was about making sure someone could walk out of here with dignity." His voice grew steadier. "And if we can keep giving each other that, in small ways, this city will always feel like home." The applause was louder this time. Some people even wiped away tears. Reporters scribbled notes. Cameras flashed, but Malik barely noticed them. He was looking at Mrs. Thompson, who nodded with quiet approval. Then came another surprise. The director of the local foundation stepped forward. She carried an envelope. "On behalf of the community," she said, "we want to support both this pantry card program and your personal dream, Malik. We learned you once hoped to train as an EMT but couldn't afford it. We'd like to help you finish that journey." She handed him the envelope. Inside was a scholarship letter, confirming that his tuition would be fully covered. Malik was stunned. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. He held the letter in his hands as if it might vanish. Finally, he spoke into the microphone. "I'm grateful," he said. "But I want you to know I ask that the seniors be helped first. If even one person like Mrs. Thompson can get what they need, that matters most. I'll study, yes. But this pantry card, this is the real victory." The crowd clapped even harder. Some shouted his name in support. Mrs. Thompson stepped closer to the microphone too, surprising everyone. "I was a teacher for 35 years, she said. "I've seen how one act of kindness can change a child's whole day, sometimes even their whole life. Malik reminded me of that lesson. And now, you're all reminding me that kindness multiplies when we share it. I may be older now, but I still believe in ripples. This is a ripple that will go far." Her words touched the audience deeply. Some customers who had only come for groceries stayed behind to donate. Children pulled coins from their pockets and dropped them into the clear jar marked Pantry Card Fund. A little girl tugged her mother's sleeve and whispered, "Can I give my allowance?" The mother nodded, and the girl placed 2 crumpled dollars into the jar with a proud smile. By evening, the news had spread again. Clips from the event appeared on local television. Reporters showed Mrs. Thompson's words and Malik's quiet smile as he held up the scholarship letter. People watching at home felt proud of their city. Some called in to donate. Others simply talked to their families about how they might show small kindness in their own lives. That night, Malik sat at his kitchen table, the envelope beside him. He read it again and again, still surprised that something so small had led here. He imagined himself in EMT training, learning how to take blood pressure, how to respond in emergencies, how to bring calm into chaos. He felt ready, and he also felt humbled. For him, the real honor was knowing he had been part of something that helped not just one woman but many. Across town, Mrs. Thompson sat with her tea, the pantry card program brochure folded neatly on her table. She thought of her late husband and his motto, "Leave places warmer than you found them." She smiled, knowing that today, in a grocery store with balloons and a microphone, she had seen that motto come to life. And beyond them both, in shops, schools, and kitchens across the city, people carried the story with them. It became a quiet reminder, tucked into wallets and hearts, that kindness didn't need to be grand to be powerful. Sometimes it was just 85 cents. Sometimes it was just the courage to see someone's dignity and protect it. The day ended not with noise, but with warmth. A cashier closed his register, a teacher placed her husband's quote back into her handbag, and an entire community carried home a little more light than they had in the morning. The ripples were still moving, and no one knew how far they would go. Would you like me to expand part 5 in the same way, about 1,300 words? Keeping the following week brought a kind of attention no one had expected. What began as a quiet story inside one neighborhood grocery store now reached homes across the country. A national morning show ran a special segment with the title on the screen, "How 85 Cents Started a Movement." Clips from the community event played the balloons, the applause, Mrs. Thompson's speech about ripples, and Malik holding the scholarship envelope. Viewers at home watched with their coffee cups in hand, many smiling, some even tearing up. The host of the show told the story in simple, heartfelt words. She explained how one small act of kindness, just 85 cents, had led to the pantry card program, donations for seniors, and Malik's chance to continue his dream of becoming an EMT. The story struck a deep chord. Social media flooded with posts from people in different states saying they wanted to start their own 85-cent fund. A woman in Texas wrote, "This reminded me to carry extra coins in my car for people short at the gas station." A teacher in New York shared, "We've started our own version of the 85-cent challenge with our middle school students." For Malik, life did not suddenly become glamorous. He still woke up early, tied his apron, and helped customers. But the difference was how people now looked at him. Customers recognized his face from the news. Some came through his line just to thank him personally. One man said quietly, "You helped my mom. Not directly, but through your example. Thank you." A young woman placed an envelope on the counter with a note, "For the pantry cards. Keep it going." Malik accepted it with humility, always reminding people that it wasn't really about him, it was about kindness itself. Mrs. Thompson, too, noticed changes in her life. Neighbors stopped by her door more often to check on her. A local Girl Scouts troop visited with small care baskets. She laughed and told them she didn't need all of it, but she was touched by their effort. At church on Sunday, people hugged her, saying how proud they were of her for speaking up at the event. She felt a little shy, but in her heart, she knew she had been given a second classroom in her later years, not one with chalkboards and desks, but one where her story could teach about dignity and care. Meanwhile, the pantry card program grew. Other grocery chains called to ask how it was organized. The nonprofit that partnered with Malik's store began to design a simple manual so other cities could adopt the idea. Within weeks, several towns across the state launched their own versions. Elderly people quietly benefited, often without ever knowing the name of the cashier who had sparked it all. They simply knew that, at the checkout, someone had their back. One evening, Malik attended his first EMT orientation class. He sat in a room with other students, some older, some younger, all with the same goal, to learn how to respond in emergencies. The instructor asked each person to share why they were there. When it was Malik's turn, he hesitated. Then he said, "Because I believe in helping people with dignity, no matter the size of the need. Sometimes it's a few coins. Sometimes it's much more. But the heart is the same." His classmates nodded, some smiling, already sensing the sincerity in him. Back in the city, the teenager who had posted the original photo sat at his computer, amazed at how far his little post had traveled. He had thought maybe a few friends would see it. Now it had been shared thousands of times, even read aloud on national television. His teacher told him that one moment of paying attention had changed lives. The boy realized he had learned something important too: stories matter. They can travel farther than you ever expect, carrying hope along the way. In living rooms across the country, families talked about the story. Parents told their kids, "See? This is the kind of person we should look up to." Some children even began carrying small jars labeled 85-cent fund in their bedrooms, saving coins to give away when they saw someone in need. It became almost like a game, but a good kind, one that built habits of kindness. The grocery company eventually decided to make the kindness fund a permanent policy. They placed small signs at registers that read, "If you're short a little, we'll meet you where you are." These signs, though simple, made shoppers smile and trust the store more. Business even improved not because of fancy sales, but because people wanted to be part of something human. Months later, Malik finished his first round of EMT training. On weekends, he began volunteering with a local senior outreach team, visiting older residents to check blood pressure, listen to their concerns, and share safety tips. Mrs. Thompson became one of his regular stops. She insisted on packing him a small lunch each time, saying, "Teachers never let their students go hungry." Malik always laughed and thanked her, touched by her steady kindness. One afternoon, as Malik walked home from class, he passed by the grocery store. He noticed a scene that made him pause. At register 3, the very place where everything had started, a woman realized she was short of change. Before Malik could step in, the young man behind her offered, "Don't worry, I've got it. Someone once did that for my grandma." The cashier nodded, accepted the coins, and the line moved on. Malik stood quietly, watching, his heart full. He realized then that the ripple had grown far beyond him. It was alive in others now, carrying itself forward. That night, Malik sat at his table and thought of everything that had happened. He thought of the first time he tapped his card for Mrs. Thompson's milk, not knowing anyone had noticed. He thought of the teen with the headphones who had posted it. He thought of the teachers, the families, the cafe signs, the pantry cards, the envelopes of donations, and the children saving their coins. He realized the truth: the 85 cents had never really been about money. It had been about a choice to protect dignity, to care, to see someone. And when people make that choice again and again, the world quietly shifts. In the end, the story became more than a headline, more than a viral post, more than a scholarship. It became a living lesson written across countless small moments. And though Malik would go on to save lives as an EMT, he would always remember that sometimes the most powerful rescue was the simplest one, making sure someone didn't have to give up the small comfort of milk because of 85 missing cents. The story warmed hearts everywhere, not because of the coins, but because of what they represented. They represented humanity, kind, simple, and steady. And long after the cameras turned away, long after the articles were archived, the ripples kept moving through lives, one small act at a time.